Hello, this presentation is going to examine the concept of population structure, here focusing on the biological structure of populations, and in another presentation we'll look at the sociocultural structure of populations. And when it comes to the biological structure, it comes down to just a couple of things, age and sex. And when we say structure, it means we are dividing the population into some kind of subgroups or subpopulations. With regard to age, that means we're putting people into different category cohorts. And with sex, it means we're dividing the population into the biological categories of male and female. That should not be confused, by the way, with the concept of gender, which is not necessarily the same thing as biological sex. Biological age also should not be confused with the social meaning of age, as that is culturally specific, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about chronological years. So we are going to use these two concepts to look at age-specific and sex-specific structure. So with regard to sex structure, we're looking primarily at the sex ratio, which is always taken as the ratio of males to females, as is the standard convention. That is related to the age of a population, because the younger a population is, the greater the ratio of males to females, because women tend to outlive men. And when we get to older populations, we therefore find there are more women than men. And we can examine and compare age-specific sex ratios across populations, and if we look at different countries, as we will in a moment, we'll see some examples of that. As here, we have three countries. We have Afghanistan, Russia, and the United States. And if you'll look down this chart, you'll see some very different structures going on. If we look across the total row, for instance, for Afghanistan, we see that males outnumber females, which right away should alert you to the fact that this is a younger population. If we look where the majority of people are located across age cohorts, we see, in fact, for Afghani females, that most of them are under the age of 14. And for males, it is the same story. So this is what we call a young population. For Russia, if we look across, we see females far outnumber males. This is partly a biological function of women outliving men, but there are also several lifestyle problems that are plaguing Russian men. But if we look at where the majority of people are located within this age structure, we see that for females, the modal age cohort would be 50 to 54, followed closely by 25 to 29. So somewhere between 20 and 60 years old, we have the largest number of people. For females, for males, you see the modal age cohort is actually the 20 to 24, and it declines from there. But similarly, the largest number of people are in that same age group of 20 to 60, which is good because that means most of the population is of working age, and there are advantages to that that we'll talk about in another moment. Here we look at dependency ratios. In the United States, you see that females only slightly outnumber males. You can see a big gap right there at the 80 plus category. Also 75 to 79, 70 to 74, and even 65 to 69. It's reversed if you look at younger ages, but the gaps here aren't as pronounced as with Russia, as males in the United States don't have the same types of problems with risk behaviors and so forth. Good way to visually focus on age and sex is by looking at population pyramids, which is a visual graph. It's a bar graph of age and sex structure. This link, populationpyramid.net, is a great way to examine some of these, and you can explore that. And you can note that some of these are based on raw numbers and some are based on percentages. And from these we can calculate mean and median ages. And finally, if we look at the age dependency ratio, this is one of the more useful types of tools when we study age and sex structure, that we can learn a lot about a country just by this particular statistic. If you have a very young population or a very old population, that is those age categories outside of working age, then you know that there's a higher dependency ratio. This can have economic consequences. In the United States and Switzerland, it's relatively low. The United States is very low, actually. But countries like Kenya, which are very young, have a very high dependency ratio, and this can exact a real economic cost. In fact, if we jump over to our previously mentioned website, populationpyramid.net, and take a look at Kenya, you can see this visual representation of how young it is, with the largest age category being under 4, followed by under 9, and so forth, gradually coming into the middle. And you see the blue and pink represent the male and female populations. These are raw numbers and percentages shown. So a very useful tool for grasping the age dependency ratio is the population pyramid. Thanks for watching.